Hello everybody, welcome to the West Ham Way YouTube channel. It's Corey and I'm joined by Joe from the TurfCast podcast. Of course, West Ham did finally, after a couple of seasons, beat Burnley 1-0. Joe, just your immediate thoughts from a Burnley perspective on that performance.
Obviously disappointed with the result. I thought we played okay, but I think I'm thinking we played okay because we had a lot of possession, but I think you let us have a lot of possession. I think that's the thing there. You got the goal, you got in front, you don't need to do anything after that. It's a lot of, because obviously, I know you said to me earlier, you've just done a watch along. We've just done a watch along as well. A lot of the comments in our watch along were people saying that West Ham have Burnley'd us. And I see that in a sense that you've got the early goal and then you've not part of the bus at all because you could have won by more. You could have, you've hit the post, you've had efforts, there's chances where certain players may have made the wrong decision on your part. So you could have been out of sight. But yeah, I think we've played all right. We've had that one lapse in concentration at the back. Which I don't know what Robbie Brady's doing. He should have followed him in. Ben Mee as well, maybe positioning could have been better. And Tarky as well, positioning could have been better. But obviously, disappointed with the result, but very, very worried as well now because it's another game where we haven't scored a goal. And obviously, I was just saying to you off air then that we have quite a few issues up front. And it's another game up front where we've offered absolutely nothing.
Yeah, do you know what? In past games, and I think in my preview, I was telling people the way West Ham have been this season is different to the way we played against Burnley before. And it was so important for Moyes to go and try and press that midfield and win it off the likes of Brownhill. And it seemed like West Ham, particularly Pablo Fornals, Soucek, trying to win the ball in transition and try and set something. Because if you give Burnley too much time to get back in that shape, all of a sudden it becomes really, really difficult. So it was kind of, in a way, surprising we did get the goal from the delivery because you normally are so good. But obviously it has flicked off Ben Mee and Antonio's positioning was really good. And I think West Ham in that first half played exactly how I think you should try and play against Burnley, be a bit more progressive. But like you said, second half, I think we wanted to go and try and press still. But I think Burnley had a lot of the possession. Yeah, Dwight McNeil that come on was picking up little pockets. And again, we had to go to that defensive shape to try and see things out.
Yeah, I think the introduction of Dwight McNeil is the reason why we... I'd say shaded the second half, but even in terms of chances, you had more chances. But that's always going to happen when Burnley open up because obviously we are such a compact side. And in the second half, we're obviously chasing the game. But yeah, the introduction of Dwight McNeil, the lad is so good. He gets on the ball. And nobody else, I think he looks so good because he plays in a team where nobody does that sort of thing. Like nobody drives at players in that Burnley squad like Dwight McNeil does. So it was good to see him come on and drive at your defence and try and create chances. But yeah, even in the second half, with Dwight McNeil driving at your defence and getting in them pockets and getting in them little passages of play, doing the 1-2s, the triangles, all that sort of thing, even then, we still didn't create any clear-cut chances. So from a Burnley perspective, yeah, it's quite worrying up front and the lack of chances being created. And not just this game, not just because it's like against West Ham or anything. It's just a familiar theme of the season. We're just not creating enough.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned with the strikers, I know you're not getting enough goals, but that link up between Barnes and Wood is something that you always have to look out for. You've got Barnes sometimes dropping deep and trying to pull people out. And I think that's where West Ham, particularly with Rice and Soucek, dealt with that threat and nullified it a bit. Like I said to you before, I think Wood had one shot from outside the box, but it was one of them games, Craig Dawson isn't the best at bringing the ball out from the back, but that type of game, that aerial battle he thrives in. And I felt like he got the best of Wood today.
Yeah, honestly, I think a lot of people have had the best of Wood this season. Apologies, my little boy, he's just demanding that. Yeah, very nice. I think a lot of people have just seen. A lot of people have had the best of Wood this season. Whether if an informed Wood went to the London Stadium today, maybe it might have been a different story because he does tend to have a bit of joy against West Ham, as does Ashley Barnes. But yeah, you could say that Dawson did deal with him well, and yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just think that. We're not creating much. I think the link between the midfield and the strikers is just missing at the minute. And obviously we'd get a lot of joy out on the wings and stuff. But I think we're now, because of Wood's form, we've kind of tried to play a little bit differently. Like we don't seem to get it out wide as quickly as we used to. Probably knowing that Chris, there's no point because Chris Wood ain't going to score it. I don't know if that's just a what's the word, sort of that subconscious thing that the players are doing. I'm not sure. I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, but we tend to now try and do it a bit through the middle. But that link isn't there. Like we're not quick enough on the ball to do that and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it could have been different if like an informed Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood have gone to West Ham because, as I've said a couple of times now, they do have a bit of joy there. But yeah, for whatever reason, no, they've been really, really poor this season. But yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with the fact that Dawson sort of like dealt with him well because he did. But again, he's been so bad this season, as Chris Wood.
Yeah, mate, to be fair, it is a great shout. Like, from what I've seen of Burnley previously, you get Wood sometimes trying to run the channel, Barnes as well, giving you a little bit of width. And I think you struggle with that, particularly in the first half. Second half, obviously, McNeil comes on. Problem with somebody like him is he's happy playing in the middle, and he's also got the pace. And I didn't realise how quick he was either, particularly down that left-hand side. For me, if you're a Burnley fan, he needs to be getting on the ball a lot more. And I think then you'll see more chances created.
He is easily our most creative player. Like, it's not even close. Like, you've got Robbie Brady and Goodmanson as well, but Robbie Brady were class a few years ago. Then he had a really bad knee injury, and it's only now recently started looking okay again. But it's still his delivery has been very, very poor this season. So a few times, like, we had a free kick in a decent position, and then Robbie had wasted it. But the thing is with Robbie is he doesn't get on the ball and run at defenders like you say, like Dwight McNeil does. So yeah, he needs to play more as Dwight. He has been a bit out of form this season as Dwight, to be fair. But today he was brilliant, and he was good against Man United as well on Wednesday, whenever we played him. He needs to play more and get on the ball more.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting actually bringing on Matthias Vidra and Jay Rodriguez. It sort of struck the fear of me, particularly Rodriguez's goal last season as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've spoke about Woods and Barnes' form. Would you say that was the right decision to make? And I know they didn't make too much difference, but there was a bit more mobility up front, and I think West Ham had to be a little bit more switched on and sit a bit deeper.
Yeah, exactly that. Like Wood and Barnes, they're very, very, very similar in the way that they play. They hold up strikers, not necessarily a target man, because I think Chris Wood is, when he's playing well, a brilliant finisher. Like he is one of the best finishers in fact, he is the best finisher I get a lot of sick saying this on the podcast every week, but he's the best finisher I've seen at Turf Moor since Charlie Austin. Better than Danny Ings for me. Like, Danny Ings is obviously a better all-round footballer, but in terms of just the finishing, I think Chris Wood is better in that department. But I think it was the right decision because of the form that them two have been in. It were another situation where we got to 60 minutes again and we hadn't scored another goal. And the problem with Dyche is he makes his subs really, really late. But obviously, I'm saying that after he's just made a half-time sub and then he's brought 2 on around the 60-minute mark. So I think he is slightly noticing the poor form or trying to deal with it a little bit differently, should I say, because obviously he's noticed it. But he normally brings Vidra and Jay Rodriguez on in like the 85th minute, and like, what can they do then? You know what I mean? So I think it was the right decision. But ultimately, this is a debate that we just had on our watch along as well. Like, a lot of people keep saying, Chris Wood isn't good enough and he's dropping. Ashley Barnes isn't good enough and he's dropping. Get Jay Rodriguez and Vidra starting a few games. But now they've been on for 30 minutes and they have not done anything either. And there was a situation where I think it was Lawton crossed the ball into Jay. One of your defenders missed it, and because Jay wasn't anticipating the ball bouncing to him, it just hits him, and then it goes out of play. Like, a good striker in good form with his eye in would have been anticipating that and would have been ready to volley it into the back of the net. I'm sure if it would fall into Antonio in that exact situation, because it was a similar sort of situation, the ball fell to Antonio and he had to react to get your goal, and that's exactly what he did. That's what Jay Rodriguez should have done. It probably was a little bit tougher for Jay Rodriguez to do it because he got to him a little bit quicker, but the main concern for me is definitely the strikers. But I do think it was the right decision, but I think it's also proven that the other two aren't good enough as well at the minute. It's a bit of a worry.
Yeah, I mean, as far as you've got 4 strikers, we've only got 1. It's Michail Antonio. He came back in the side today. He actually posed a bit of a threat in that first half, to be fair. He is regaining his fitness. Is he someone from a Burnley perspective that you were massively concerned about coming into the game, or did you feel like Mee and Tarkowski could have dealt with him?
Yeah, I think you always feel that Mee and Tarkowski can deal with people because there's such a good, solid defensive partnership. Like, there's very rarely I'm playing a team and I'm picking one person out and saying he's going to absolutely terrorise us today, unless you're playing City or Liverpool or now maybe to a lesser extent United. But he's obviously a quality player, and I think he did well he was at Forest, weren't he? That's where he signed him from. He's been a good player for a while, so he's obviously a good player, and he's obviously got the goal today. But before the game, I weren't necessarily overly worried about him. But obviously, he's shown why he's at a club like West Ham and getting the goals. So, fair play to him. He reacted well, and he's obviously got the winner.
But I think it is so interesting because obviously second half we sat off a little bit and you see Michail Antonio starting to fatigue and West Ham actually sit deeper. That's something we've had in recent weeks when Alaire's been playing, where we feel like we can't go and press and get opportunities in behind. And it felt, to be fair, a lot of the opportunities did fall to Jarrod Bowen, and like we touched on before we come on live, the fact that Bowen didn't take those opportunities against the Burnley side that are so difficult to break down from a West Ham perspective, it is frustrating, not because we didn't get the win, but in future games, you can't always rely on missing so many chances.
Yeah, I like Bowen as well. To be honest, if I could pick, if you said to me you can have one player from that West Ham squad, obviously I don't watch West Ham every single week. Bowen would be the player that I choose. Simply because if we could have Dwight McNeil on the left and Bowen on the right, getting running with the ball and running at defenders, I think that would be brilliant with Chris Wood up top when he's on form. Because fingers crossed he gets back to form. But yeah, Bowen made a few bad decisions today. There was a couple of occasions where he could have squared it or whatever, and he's taken the shot on, and obviously ultimately he's not got the goal. But like you say, it is normally a case of we're so tough to break down. But I think you did it perfectly. I think you got the goal early on, then you just let us have the ball, and basically in a way, like you said, you have kind of Burnley does to an extent, because you said to us, right, you have the ball, probably knowing that we're not very comfortable with the ball, and that's you just basically saying, right, now you break us down. I think the difference is when we do that to teams, we say, right, you break us down, and then when they attack, we just break it down, then let them attack again. Whereas the difference where you were obviously counter-attacking us. And ultimately, when we were expanding and opening up, you probably should have put the game to bed. Like ultimately, obviously, you've got the win. But there are a couple of occasions where it should have been 2-0. And I think from a West Ham perspective, you could probably be a little bit frustrated about that. But obviously, ultimately, you got the win.
Still, mate, nonetheless, to be fair, it was a tight game, and you give Burnley possession. I know we talk about not necessarily being creative, but you sit deep enough, teams will find opportunities. I think, I look at Robbie Brady, particularly on that right-hand side in the second half, cutting into his left. Comfortable for us when players want to come in central, because we've got so many bodies there. Dwight McNeil is a different proposition when he's going around the side and then he's coming in and he can pick off shots. But just in terms of Burnley in general, mate, obviously it is a January transfer window. You've recently had a new takeover. Are there any prospects from a Burnley perspective that you can go in, bring some bodies in and possibly a little bit of added quality?
Yeah, well, we need to. I think, as I was saying to you off air then, Burnley hasn't, don't get me wrong, I don't like slagging Mike Garlick off, who is the former chairman. He's still at the club. He got us to where we are now. He got us out of the Championship. He stuck by Dyche. We got relegated with Dyche, remember? He's not one of these chairmen that's just sacked him. And he invested in the squad a lot back in the Championship days and the early Premier League days. Like I said, he got us to where we are, got us into the Europa League qualifiers. But I think ultimately the club outgrew him, or should I say the market outgrew him, not necessarily the club. I think the market has outgrown him. So we haven't had any proper backing at Burnley Football Club for 3.5 years now. The last time we bought some players to slot straight into the first team were Chris Wood and Charlie Taylor. We bought them both from Leeds, like I said, about 3.5 seasons ago, when they failed to go up in the playoffs one time. So yeah, we do need some investment. We need some first team players. We need a right winger. And we need a striker, I think, at the minute. And we could do with a right back as well, but that's not overly concerning because I think Matt Lawton's form was really, really picked up. I thought he played really well today, did Lawton. He put some brilliant crosses. So yeah, ultimately, we do need some investment, definitely. But the new chairman has said all the right things, but it's about now putting your money where your mouth is. He said he wants to back Sean Dyche. He said certain things like, a question was asked to him in a press conference to the new chairman, Alan Pace is called, said, Sean Dyche has been quite frustrated recently with lack of signings. What do you make of that? And he sort of said, I can't really comment on the previous regime, but I promise you that Sean Dyche won't be frustrated while I'm here. Just he's saying the right things and little stuff like that. But now it's time. He's only been here a couple of weeks, so we're not exactly going to be signing Messi and stuff like that on now, are we? So, but we do need to start bringing people in, and again, the perfect sort of people for us to bring in a good place from the Championship, and that's how Burnley have always done it. But the problem is now the teams like Villa, West Ham, yourselves obviously with Bowen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of like what you do now as well. So then, because you've got these clubs who have more income, more fans, richer chairman, because you're coming into these situations now. What you found as a Burnley fan is, back in the day, we might have offered 10 million for Bowen or something like that, and it's probably been accepted because that would have been the only offer there. But because you've got clubs like yourselves, like Leeds as well, like Villa, even Fulham, they don't shy spending some money, do they? They spend a lot of money. The market value has gone up, and now these good Championship players, we're sort of priced out of them. So hopefully he can drag us back into that market again now, and we can start competing again for some players, because the going rate for, I think, Ben Rahman, he signed 5 million for this loan and then 20 million if it goes through.
25, yeah. Fair whack.
But Burnley don't spend that sort of money. Our record transfer fee is 15 million quid, and that was for Ben Gibson, and that didn't work out. So yeah, Burnley don't spend that sort of money. So we do need to be back into that market. We need to be pushed back into that market, be able to compete again. If not, if we don't go down this season, we'll definitely go down next season. We're at the stage now where we need investment or we're gone. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, like you touched on, mate, the Championship market, to be fair, is full of gems, and I think people overlook it sometimes. But you see, like you spoke about Aston Villa, Matty Cash coming up has been a fantastic player. Ollie Watkins adapts to the league so well. So Ben Rama, it's taken him a bit of time. I thought he was superb at points today. Obviously, he got dragged off. Could have been something to do with fatigue, but yeah, it's definitely something worth exploring. I'm so interested to see from an outside perspective with Burnley, because to be fair to Sean Dyche, he's done a brilliant job with the players that he's got. He does get a tune out of them. You are very effective. I want to see what he's got when he's got a little bit of money to spend and how he will change the side with a little bit of added quality.
Yeah, well, a lot of people sort of like always say like, oh, Sean Dyche should only ever play defensive sort of like compact football, and in the Premier League era, not the Premier League era, when we have been in the Premier League, yeah. But if you go back, if anybody ever wants to like check out how we played in the Championship, it was open, expansive, attacking football. You know, we had fast people up front in Andre Gray, Danny Ings and stuff like that. Admittedly, Sean Dyche didn't sign Danny Ings. He was signed by Eddie Howe, but Sean Dyche brought in like the likes of, say, Andre Gray and people like that, Joey Barton. So we played this type of football where we had players on the wing running at defences and a fast lad up front who could, you could stretch defences and things like that. Yeah. So he does know how to play that way. He just knows that if we play that way in the Premier League, we'll end up doing a Sheffield United or a Derby County or something like that. You've got to play in a certain way. And I know Twitter is never the best way to gauge opinion of football fans, but if you look on Twitter and see some of the comments about how Burnley play, like I use TweetDeck and I have the word Burnley saved, and honestly, you go on there and just look at some of the comments. It's always just criticising Burnley's style of play, saying, "Oh, they deserve to go down for the way they play." So if we opened up every single game, even against West Ham today, like you saw how many chances you had because we opened up in the second half. If we open up like that every single week, we are 100% getting relegated. So I don't necessarily dislike the way we play. There's been a few murmurs recently because it's not really going too well this season and a couple of seasons ago, but it gets results. I'm not one of these football fans that suddenly now has to be entertained when he's watching football. I want to see Burnley do well. I don't want to see Burnley play open, expansive, attacking football. Admittedly, Leeds are currently above us in the league, but I'd be so frustrated going to Ellen Road as a Leeds fan and just seeing him defend like kids. It'd frustrate me so much. It really, really would. Don't get me wrong, it does get you off your seats, or maybe I am talking probably a little bit rubbish, but I just love to see a solid defence. Maybe it's because I've been a Burnley fan and I've been watching Sean Dyche now for 7 years. But yeah, I do like the way we play. It's just this season, we're not clinical enough, so it looks even worse. Like last season, people could say, "Oh, you're so defensive," but it works, mate. We're scoring goals, whereas now we're not. So yeah, it looks even worse.
But to be fair, to a degree, like with West Ham, we don't play the most attractive style of football. We are essentially a counter-attacking side that looks to try and win the ball a little bit higher up and transition very, very quickly. That can be frustrating equally when we're not doing it quick enough and we're not being clinical. But I think you buy into it a little bit more when your team's being effective. And exactly, I think Burnley, with a lot of the players that they've got, have been affected. And to be fair, like I did the preview of Burnley, and from the outset, you think people say long ball and they try and play like this. Not really, though. Dyche, if you can get hold of possession, you will try and play and try and create. So I think they call it football Twitter, don't they? It's just all these people that sort of like go on there and things like that. I think like one person says something who's got a bit of a following, and all the people sort of like say it, and it's just lazy sort of like punditry when you hear people like Chris Sutton. Obviously, he's a former Blackburn Rovers player, so he's going to criticise at any point. But when you hear sort of like people saying like it's long balls, it isn't. I think if you look at sort of like some of our games this season, we haven't been the team that's played the most long balls. Southampton played a lot more than us when they came to the turf and beat us, did a job on us. But yeah, I think the best way that I always like to describe our style of play is compact, not defensive. It's compact. Like we will sit back, but we just get the two banks of four and say to you, like, break us down. Because we know like you said today, like we were trying to get round, Robbie Brady were trying to cut inside, but there were too many bodies there for him to get any joy. That's what we do. We get the bodies back. If there's all them bodies there, there's less chance that you're going to break us down. So yeah, it's not necessarily a long ball. But that we tended to do more long balls in the Championship, really, but people never criticise us for it, because when you're doing a long ball onto a pacey striker who's latching onto it and playing on the last shoulder of the defender, it looks a bit more attractive than just a long ball up to a target man in Chris Wood or Ashley Barnes. So yeah, I think there is a few sort of like what's the word? Sort of like wrong sort of like ways of describing our play, but yeah, it's not all bad. Yeah, no, it's a little bit misinterpreted. I don't think you played that bad and stuff. Maybe you don't play between the lines like some teams do, but neither do West Ham, to be fair, at points. So I can completely understand it. Rest of this season, mate, what is the ambition? I know you've touched on it. You are kind of in and around that relegation zone. Is it literally at this stage just to stay up or maybe get a few wins and get a decent couple of signings and maybe look at top half?
Right now, it is definitely still for me. I'm pretty disappointed that I'm saying that because at the start of the season, people always forget. People always just, again, going back to this sort of like ideology of Burnley, people sort of like have this sort of like mentality that we only ever, finish, 17th or 16th or something like that. But obviously last season we finished 10th. I think we finished above West Ham, finished above Villa, finished above all the Everton, finished above a lot of good sides.
Yeah.
And obviously the season before that we'll forget. But the season before that we finished 7th. So, we can get into the top half of the Premier League. And at the start of this season, with the way that we ended last season, finishing 10th, I wanted to push on. I was saying, yeah, let's push on. Maybe even win a trophy, but that's probably obviously very, very ambitious for a Burnley fan. Of course it is. But, that's the one thing I haven't seen my team do now is win a trophy. So obviously I'd love to see that. But yeah, them ambitions have changed now after the start of the season and the way that we're looking. So yeah, I would, if someone said to me now, look, I'll offer you 17th, I would literally rip their arms off. I'd grab it right now because I think I'm a very sort of like reactionary sort of fan. We have been playing well recently, and the results have picked up until the last 2 games, obviously against you today and against Manchester United. There's no shame in getting beat at the London Stadium, and there's definitely no shame in losing to a side that went top of the Premier League when they beat us. But yeah, I think for now it is definitely just stay up.
Yeah, I do feel for you a little bit because it was us last season. To be fair, it was just trying to. I mean, to be fair with West Ham, you'll probably look at it as well. Been surprised at how well we've done this season. I expected us to be really near the relegation zone after that Newcastle performance, and now we're looking at it. Possibly we're in the top half. We're doing better than Chelsea. I'm interested to see what West Ham can do this season. To be fair, because there's no expectation from me as a fan. Moyes has somehow managed to turn it around. From the outside as well, your opinion on Moyes. Are you of the same opinion? He's managed to do a decent job at West Ham so far?
Yeah, I like him. Again, I obviously did a preview with a West Ham fan before the game. But yeah, I like Moyes, but he was sort of like saying like there was an underwhelming sort of feeling amongst West Ham fans when he was reappointed.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's one of them, if you look at where he's been, apart from Sunderland and Manchester United, he's done well. He did well at Preston, begrudgingly, I'll admit that. He did well at Everton, you know what I mean? He's doing well at you boys now. So I don't mind him. And if Dyche left, I know a few Burnley fans would vilify me for this, but if Sean Dyche left and Moisey was out of work, I would have him at Burnley, of course I would. I think he's a very good manager. And I think he's proving it again now. I think now he's finally getting his footprint back on the side. West Ham are starting to do well again. So I like Moisey. I do like him. I think he's got a little bit of an unfortunate reputation, probably because the biggest job he's ever had he failed in. But I just think I just think the job was too big for him, but I don't think many people would have succeeded following Fergie. But yeah, I like David Moyes.
Yeah, mate, to be fair, he's had a few poison chalices, and to a degree with West Ham when he first came in at the first time. He managed to get a tune out of Arnautovic. We stay up, it gets binned off, and we bring in Pellegrini. But that's just what I'm saying. To be fair to him, we're not playing the most attractive stuff, but we're an incredibly effective side. And in a Premier League table like this, it could completely change if you get a few decent results. So, yeah, I am at the moment happy with him. And to be fair, he does deserve a new contract from my perspective. Joe, I'm going to let you go, mate. I've taken so much of your time. Thank you so much for joining me on the West Ham Way YouTube channel. Everyone check out the TurfCast podcast as well. Give the video a like, subscribe if you're new. And I'll be back very, very shortly for a match reaction. So until then, take care.